Hi, my name is Brianna Justin, and this is my narrated PowerPoint on classroom management. The first question was, what do you believe about classroom management? I think that classroom management definitely needs to be addressed with the students early on in the year, and the boundaries for the students need to be set right away. If you allow students to get away with things early on in the year, they continue to think that they can get away with those things throughout the rest of the year, and it just causes hassle for trying to reteach them later. Whereas if you have those boundaries set right away in the first few weeks and continue to remind the students when the boundaries are being pushed, they learn that those things can't happen in your classroom. You also need to make sure that you allow the students to take responsibility not only for their own behavior, but their own learning too. If you're there telling the students exactly what to think, how to think, and when, they're not actually learning anything, they're just regurgitating what you're telling them. That's not how you make an individualized learner out of these students. They need to learn and understand right from the beginning that they are the ones that are in charge of how they act and what they learn. The second question was, how will you set up your classroom? I really like the idea of flexible seating in the classroom. It allows the students to be in a position that they learn best in. I think that I would probably limit this a little bit and have either group tables or desks, and then have flexible seating outside of that for when they're doing individual work, silent reading, or even small group work. I think that it allows students to learn in the best way that they can, and they can choose how they are least distracted. It also allows the students to once again take control over their own learning and behavior. There will be limits set and consequences that happen when the rules for these areas are not followed, but it allows the students more freedom to be in a position that they learn best in. Not every student learns best in the typical classroom setting. The third question was, how will you establish rules and consequences? I really like the idea of allowing students to come up with their own rules and consequences for not following those rules. I feel like it connects each of the students with the rules a little better because they're the ones that are actually coming up with the ideas, instead of just being told, this is what you can and cannot do in this classroom. It will pretty much always end up coming out with the same basic set of rules anyways, and this way it just allows the students to take responsibility for it themselves. Then I would write them on a poster and have all the students sign it, and then hang it up in the room where everyone can see it, and then they can refer back to it if necessary. The fourth question was, will you use a reward system, and if so, what kind? I like the use of reward systems to an extent. I feel as if some teachers take it way out of hand, and not only does it cause a lot of hassle during class time and with the students, but it's also a lot of work for the teacher. I think that a basic 1 or 2 point reward system for the class over a period of time is a very well working system. The teacher that I recently did an immersion day with used a planner reward system where they earned 2 points per day, one for having their planner signed and another for having their homework finished on time. They could also earn back points if they lost it one day for doing extremely well in other aspects of the classroom. At the end of the month, if they hadn't lost any of their points, or if they had earned back any points that they had lost, they got to have what was called a star lunch inside of the classroom with the teacher and the other students that made it all the way through the month. It was a pretty neat and easy way to handle rewards without doing stickers or candy every day. It could get really expensive for the teacher. The other aspect to it was that they had a word on the board that was Friday. If the class as a whole was not doing well one day with behavior issues or whatever it may be, or if they got a bad review from a specials teacher or a cafeteria worker or just in the hallway from another teacher, then they would lose a letter from Friday. If they got a compliment throughout the week, they could gain that letter back. But if they still had the full word Friday on the board on Friday or at the end of the week, whichever came first, then they got a small group reward such as an extra 10-minute recess or a game of silent ball in the classroom or whatever. Something simple that still felt like a reward for the students. Other than that, I don't like the excessive reward systems. I feel like they always end up in favor of or in opposition to certain students throughout the year, whether the teacher means to or not. And finally, the last question was, what routines will you use in your classroom? I love the use of morning work and morning meeting and greeting ideas. I really liked the morning meeting that the teacher from my immersion day used. She allowed all the students 13 minutes after the bell rang at the beginning of the day to get their agenda written down in their planner, to get their snack for the day and put it in their desk, to sharpen their pencils, to use the restroom, and just to chat quietly with their neighbors. After those 13 minutes were up, they did a morning greeting. All of the students went around the room, shook hands with all their peers, and said good morning and whatever the student's name was, and then the other student would respond back with the same thing. It was an amazing sight to see because it not only gets the students to interact with each other, it also teaches them social skills that unfortunately a lot of young people nowadays don't get because of screen time interaction that goes on. It allows them to connect on a more personal level with all their peers, whom they're going to be seeing throughout the rest of the year. I also really like having the agenda on the board and visible for all the students to see. It doesn't necessarily have to have a time frame on it, simply because that kind of stuff can change very quickly. But just to have the basic schedule out so the students can see it is really nice. It eliminates the what do I do now questions and the constant asking of what things are going to happen throughout the day and what time. It also allows you to show when a schedule is going to be different if there's a different day. There are a lot of students, many with certain disabilities, for example, that will actually become irritated or upset if their schedule and normal everyday activities get thrown out of whack. Many students have to have that certain schedule that is set in their brain because they don't like change, and allowing them to see if there will be a change ahead of time eases some of that uneasiness that comes with a change in their schedule. I believe that all of these things are up for debate, and I'm willing to change as I get into the classroom and actually have my own classroom. But as of right now, this is how I feel about each of these items. Thank you.